This is DRF, Race of the Day. Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Mike Beer, the DRF Race of the Day for Saturday, September 11, race number 9 at Kentucky Downs. Let's look the field for $1 million race. It's the Grade 2 Calumet Turf Cup. We're going 1.5 miles on the lawn. It is a big full field. You've got some high-class turf horses in this race, Mike. The number 5, Arklow, 3-1 on the morning line. He certainly has credentials. And, of course, you have Zulu Alpha looking to get back to his best form. He might be racing himself into shape in the third start of the form cycle.
Maybe. You would hope so. If you like Zulu Alpha in here, you'd hope that he's racing himself into shape because his first 2 starts so far from the long layoff haven't been good. We'll see what happens. I sort of felt like this was a wide open race unless Zulu Alpha comes back to form or Arklow can finally get the right trip. They feel like the 2 best horses in here, Dan.
Friends, download the free Formulator Past Performances for the Calumet Turf Cup on the Race of the Day event page at DRF.com. You can access them and handicap along with us. I think this pace is going to be really intriguing. Let's throw up the Timeform US Pace Projector. Channel Cat, the 3, went very fast in the early stages of the Bowling Green over a wet turf course last time out at Saratoga. He ran pretty well. He is another horse that easily could win this race. Almost $1.5 million in earnings. But the 4 Tide of the Sea is no slouch from a pace standpoint. And I think he's going to be on ascend as well.
Yeah, I think he's probably going. It feels like that's his best running style. That's also Channel Cat's best running style. I mean, they both feel like they're at their very best when they can get to the front and control the action. So something almost has to give here. We'll see how they decide to play it.
We see the number 1 Imperador sitting in a tactical position in the second flight on your pace projector. This is a horse that was a Group 1 winner in Argentina, yet to win in North America for Paulo Lobo. But let's watch his most recent race. It was the Grade 1 United Nations at Monmouth. And this was a race where Tribhuvan just stole it on the front end. And Imperador tried to rally into these slow fractions. He's going to get up to second. Epic Bromance, who's also in the Calumet Turf Cup, he's in the red cap. He'll run third. Imperador ran on pretty well considering he was really up against it from a pace standpoint.
Yeah, I agree. Thought he ran well in this race. Clearly second best at the end. In a race where, as you've pointed out, he didn't really have much of a chance. Somehow Tribhuvan got loose on a relatively modest pace, and I didn't even go fast. And nobody went with them. He managed to hold on. This horse ran well last time, and it showed that maybe he's just at his best over longer distances.
I like a horse at a price to consider is the 2, Crossfire Hurricane. This horse goes out for Michael McCarthy, Flavian Pratt. And he's your typical European horse on the gate. He doesn't break very well. But I thought his last race, the Del Mar Handicap, might be a little bit better than it looked. He was kind of buried inside, in between horses, turning for home. And he got into the stretch and he ran on a little bit, only beaten 2 lengths. If this pace is fast over a European configuration turf course that he might appreciate, maybe at a pricing at a piece.
Yeah, he's going to be a good price in here. And he did improve last time, obviously. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about his race last time, Dan. It was going to be hard for him to win, I suppose. But I just felt like his trip overall, maybe it wasn't perfect. I didn't think it was terrible. And I just feel like he just got beat by some better horses.
Channel Cat has winning experience at Kentucky Downs. I think that's a huge handicapping angle for this course. He won the Dueling Grounds Derby here as a 3-year-old. And again, he worked real hard in the early stages of the Bowling Green. He was run down by Cross Border, a rock-solid horse that would come back to run third in the Sword Dancer with a 99 buyer. There's a lot to like about this horse.
Yeah, there is, especially if he can get the right trip in here, because, again, it does sort of feel like they've found out that he's at his absolute best when you use his speed and get him involved early. We'll see how fast he's forced to go in this race. Either way, Dan, he's just a really dangerous horse in here.
I like Tide of the Sea stretching back out to 1.5 miles. I think when he uses his speed at this longer distances, he's very, very comfortable. We saw that earlier this year when he wired them in the McKnight. 2 starts back, he made Gufo, the Sword Dancer winner, work a little bit when able to control the pace in the Grand Couturier. And I cut him back to 1.25 miles last time out at Ellis Park in the local prep for this race, and he ran pretty well. That was a solid pace. He was run down in the stretch.
Yeah, that pace was solid. I don't necessarily love the horse that won that race, but this horse did a lot of work up there on the front end, and it probably cost him late. Thought he ran pretty well too back then. Again, he has to deal with Channel Cat right to his inside early in here, so we'll just see how they decide to play it. I think this horse needs to be on the lead to be at his best.
Arklow won this race in 2018. The number 5 is your morning line favorite. He benefits if the pace is fast. He looked really good winning the Louisville 3 starts back at Churchill Downs. A lot of trouble in the UN 2 back. He clipped heels when it looked like he was starting his run on the 3rd turn. What happened last time in the Del Mar handicap? He was outrun early, tried to come with his late kick, and just didn't muster up much of a response.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say he was outrunning that race. For whatever reason, they took him back right from the start of that race. Florent Giroux took him, dragged him to the back of the field, and they just sort of let him sit back there for at least a mile before they took him around wide around the 2nd turn and tried to make a run. I'm not saying that he ran great in there. I personally feel like he had absolutely no chance to win that race the way that they rode him. He had a terrible trip 2 starts back when he got into traffic on the backstretch and had to check out of there. So we'll see. I liked his seasonal debut back in May. I thought he ran really well winning that race at Churchill Downs. I don't know why, Dan, they've decided this year as a 7-year-old that they just have to take him back to last every week, because that's not how they were riding him last year when he was really good.
Bluegrass Parkway scored in the Kentucky Downs Turf Cup preview at Ellis Park. Let's watch that race on August the 8th. As we mentioned, there was a good pace going on in here. Tide of the Sea had the lead. He's going to get inhaled here, and you're going to see Bluegrass Parkway, widest and fastest, getting up to win for Michael Maker. It just looks like this horse is getting better and better with each and every start.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. This is a horse who I was a little bit of a fan of for his prior trainer, and thought that maybe he was better than he looked, even though he just could not win a race. So I don't really want to knock him, Dan. He's 2 for 4 for Maker. It feels like he is getting better. He certainly took advantage last time, but it was another step in the right direction.
A horse that loves distance is the 7 Fantasioso. He's actually turning back after a good effort in the John's Call, a restricted race going 13 furlongs at Saratoga. Let's watch Fantasioso's effort in here. There was not a lot of paces to be expected in a 1 5/8 race. Fantasioso doesn't have a lot of early speed. He's a grinder. He's a stayer. He gets up for 3rd. He's run some solid races, Mike. I think maybe this course configuration is going to work for him. He's going to have a lot of room to maneuver in the stretch.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. And I think you and I both sort of feel the same way about him, even though he wasn't winning some of those graded stakes early on when he first got over here. You know, maybe those trips just weren't quite perfect for him, and he ran a little bit better than it looked. Maybe that was the case last time, too. I mean, there was some pace in there. It did sort of look like Castellano wanted to come through on the inside in the stretch, and maybe just couldn't quite get there.
Maker also has the 8, A Journey to Freedom. Went there and really well 2 starts back for a 2 other than at Saratoga. Tried to go up the rail turning into the stretch, checked, had to alter course sharply to the outside, regathered himself, still had momentum, was able to get up. I was expecting better things from the race we just saw, the John's Call, and it just wasn't there that day for him.
Yeah, I agree. He did run well too back. He did not run well last time. So that's, I guess you just have to decide which version of this horse you think is going to show up in this race. It's, to me anyway, it's certainly a field that's more compatible with the one he was in against last time when he was no factor.
The 9 Glen County's really been up against it from a pace standpoint in his last 2 races. The UN we talked about. Tribhuvan controlled it. Glen County's trying to rally from 13 lengths out of it. It's just not going to work out. And then last time out in the Mr. D, formerly known as the Arlington Million, 2 Emmys just walked on the lead, went 3/4 of a mile and 16 and change. This horse tried very well, hard in the stretch. He was only beaten 3 lengths. Domestic Spending, the runner-up, is probably the best turf horse in the country.
Yeah, he did try pretty hard in that race. All in all, pretty good 3rd from in there with a decent trip as well, though. He was never that far away from a very slow pace that day. He ran fine, too, back in the UN, too. I didn't necessarily see his excuse that day, although the pace, I guess you could just say, wasn't there for him. But he just, to me anyway, wasn't good enough to get a bigger piece of that race. I don't know. I respect that it's Maker that's gotten this horse into form and is moving him up steadily in class. I just had a tough time getting behind this horse.
Epic Bromance, the number 10, seems like a horse that really needs firm going. If there's cut in the ground, he's in trouble. He got the firm going in the UN. He also got a very nice trip at a big price. He tucked in behind Tribhuvan. You saw him in the stretch. He could not kick on with that horse. He could not kick on with Imperador, but he held 3rd. It was an okay performance for a horse that likes distance and can maybe sit a 2nd flight trip.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he'll get the same trip he got last time, and against this field, it will be enough, Dan. He got a great trip last time, sitting off of Tribhuvan, you know, well within range, and to me, just wasn't good enough. He didn't run terribly, but it didn't make me want to bet him back in this race. So far, his best race, the race that he won at Gulfstream when they stretched him out for the first time, you know, he just got absolutely loose on the lead there and wired that field. It's not happening against this field.
The venerable Zulu Alpha, 2.2 million in earnings, won this race in 2019, one of the better turf horses in 2019, one of the better turf horses in 2020. He's only raced twice this year. He had some problems. He needed a long layoff. He came back in the Arlington, a grade 3 race, and he got beat that day. And you can argue, well, okay, he didn't run very well. Maybe he needed it. And then the Mr. D, he just caught a race with no pace. So maybe he's dirtied up a little bit. If he goes off at 6-1, I think you have to respect him.
I think that's true too. I ultimately, just going back and watching his last race, Dan, I get it. There was no pace in there. They sort of took him back and sort of settled right behind Domestic Spending in the early going and just tried to follow the big favorite to see what would happen. I'm fine with all that. I'm also fine that he didn't, really make an impact late, except for the fact that this horse came up completely empty in the stretch. He followed Domestic Spending for as long as he could, and he had absolutely nothing in the stretch. It makes me wonder if he can run it all anymore.
The 13 through the 16 entered main track only, so we'll finish up with the 12 breakpoint to win his first 5 starts in his native Chile, including 3 Group 1 races, but he's 0 for 2 in North America, now with Steve Asmussen.
I mean, it's hard to say that the trainer change is going to make a difference considering who he ran for in his first 2 starts over here. He didn't run well in his stateside debut, that allowance race. I know that he got wired by a big long shot in there, but he did no running, and he was terrible last time.
Friends, this is a wide open race. We take a look at our top picks. I think we always try to find prices in races like Kentucky Downs, but somehow Arklow sometimes just, when he shows up with his best, he's going to give a big effort. He might just be the best horse in the race if Zulu Alpha is not the same Zulu Alpha we saw a couple of years ago.
Yeah, that's probably true. I mean, listen, I really struggled with this race. I looked at it for a long time. I couldn't find the alternative. I'm not going to sit here and say that I love Arklow or that anybody should bet him as the favorite in this race. Again, I don't care for the way they've been riding him. I do think if he shows up and runs his best race, he's probably the best horse. And I couldn't find the alternative that I could talk myself into at a better price.
Just a shot in the dark for me. The 10 Epic Bromance ran okay last time out with the good trip in the UN. He likes distance. He likes firm going. I'm a little interested in Glen County. I think he's been compromised by pace in his last 2, and he might be in sneaky good form. They'll both be prices. 5-7-1-11 for Mike, 10-9-2-1 for me. It's the Grade 2 Calumet Turf Cup on a graded stakes-laden Saturday card at Kentucky Downs. Good luck.